Hi, everyone. I wanted to share this presentation that I did um, in October. This is one of the reasons I've been a bit scarce. Um, I was privileged to be able to both attend, present, and organize the joint PAPU PsySSA conference of 2024, at which the Biko Fanon Award for Psychological Liberation was presented to the ICJ team, who argued at the ICC that there's a genocide going on in Gaza. And I personally was present and assisted with creation of the awards handed out. And yeah, it is an honor to meet Ms. Fanon and Mr. Biko again. Son of Steve, is his dad. But this was my presentation that was in the program. It's about parallels I've noticed between people's beliefs and why they believe what they believe. So for many years, I've been mystified by why people believe irrational things like clearly bad political positions, clearly irrational religious beliefs, clearly unscientific medical beliefs, and so on. And this paper discusses this matter and gives a conclusion that is quite far from my base in analytic philosophy, which takes the question seriously, literally, and tries to answer what is true, what is not true. This instead just sidesteps the issue and deals with why do people believe it. So the title of the paper is Just Believing Social Media Default Truth, Fake News and Faith. There's the table of contents. There's the structure of the presentation. I'm not going to go through that in detail because I want to do this quickly. System 1 and System 2 thinking. So this is, I think this is Kahneman's position, if I remember right. So you've got your fast, automatic, unconscious thought process, which relies on heuristics, mental judgments, quick shortcuts. It's prone to biases and errors, and it's the default mode of thinking for routine tasks and familiar situations. So if you think about how you drive, you don't sit there thinking indicate, indicate, gear shift, brake, brake. You don't think like that. You just drive. Same as when you're tying your shoelaces. Unless you're learning to tie your shoelaces for the first time, you just do it, right? Your hands just go, and you don't really think about it. So that's system 1. System 2 is the kind of thing that mathematicians, computer scientists, and analytic philosophers do, which is where you think carefully. So think about chess versus, say, an arcade game. It's slow, it's deliberate, it's conscious thought process, it's involving analytic reasoning, logic. It requires more cognitive effort and resources, and it's engaged for novel situations that demand deeper analysis. So the differences between them is that basically one is fast and inaccurate and one is accurate but very slow. And you have to decide which system you're going to use. Well, decide loosely, but generally we use system 1. We also make use of heuristics, biases, and belief formation, right? So in the belief formation. So heuristics like quick template ideas of how we come to believe things. Biases, so what we already believe. How those beliefs are formed, well, the heuristics and biases lead us to have the beliefs. So, for example, notoriously confirmation bias, where you accept information that already confirms your existing beliefs. So if you've got some orange guy standing at the front saying that this bunch are coming to steal your jobs, you just believe him because you already believe it. And then you're going to vote for him, right? Because he says what you believe already. Availability heuristics, so that's judging truth or falsity based on whether you recently saw something about this. So, for example, if you saw the news and saw some story about some person who lost their job to an immigrant, and then orange guy goes on the screen and says, no, immigrants are stealing your jobs, well, you're going to vote for him. Anchoring effect, so you're relying on initial information that you get. So if you first hear about immigrants being problematic, it's going to stick in your head. All right, so the truth default positions is from a guy called Levine. This is basically that humans more or less always believe each other first and then only look for signs of lies or deceit if they feel that they see signs of lies or deceit. So you generally just believe people when they say something. School teachers, for example, are notorious for this. They'll just say stuff and most of the class will just believe it and accept it. And then if you question the teacher, you get singled out as a troublemaker. Same in church, right? So you don't question what the guy's saying, you just agree with what he's saying. And this comes to politics as well. So the role of social dynamics, well, this is about how you reinforce group identity, right? So if your group keeps saying something like immigrants are bad or Jesus died for your sins or whatever your group is saying, you then repeat that stuff and that creates your sense of belonging. Helps you to align with group norms, solidifies your narrative. It contributes to, however, to the spread of misinformation within your social group. So if your social group keeps repeating stuff that's not true, such as immigrants are wanting to steal a job, if you keep repeating that stuff inside your group, it becomes the sort of group dictum or tenet. And it not only solidifies your group, but it also becomes the standard theory within your group. So these mechanisms that we use to maintain group identity and to reinforce group identity through common stated tenets and beliefs also impact the belief states of the individual holders and members. So you want to be part of a group, so you have to say what the group says. And this applies on the left and right. It's not just the right who says stuff that is dubious and believes it. It's everybody. So there's a very famous few cases here I want to talk about. The first is the big lie. So we all know this chap here at the bottom. This is Goebbels, famous for the saying that you keep repeating something, it doesn't matter whether it's true, and people will just believe it. So if you come up with some misinformation, like in his case, that the Jews are controlling the economy or whatever story he had, you're going to keep hearing it over and over, and your friends all say it, and he says it on TV, and he's a big guy on TV, so you believe him. Especially if you don't actually socialize with any Jews and you don't know any personally, then you'll otherize them, to use a neologism. Then you've got the problem with memory and the reliability of memory with this Elizabeth Loftus over here. So she's famous for pointing out that witness testimony is unreliable. And she did some experiments and wrote some papers on how this is so. In other words, people misremember things, and every time they repeat them or bring them up again or discuss them again, the memory gets altered slightly by what they said most recently. And I personally had a recent interesting case of this where I was at a family gathering and one of my siblings said something to the effect of, hey, do you remember this or that event where such and such happened? And I was quite shocked because my memory of it was completely different. And I said, no, that isn't what happened. This happened. We were both there. And we couldn't agree on what actually happened. And that's an example of how, you're repeating this stuff to yourself about what happened to you in your life, and it gets distorted slightly every time, like a broken telephone in your brain. And by the time it comes out 20 years later in a conversation, it's completely changed and you just don't agree on what happened. So this is why writing stuff down at the time is so important, because our memories are phenomenally unreliable. So now imagine if you'd had some bad experiences, be they religious, political, or other group-related experiences, and you neglect to write down the details of what they were, how they came about, later on you will remember incorrectly. And those misremembered facts, which somebody else on this picture often states on a public platform, those misremembered facts, or what people like to call alternative facts, are not actually deliberately malicious. It's actually just because your memory is unreliable, especially if you're in your 70s or 80s or whatever he is. But the trouble is, this particular character in the bottom corner there is overconfident. So he suffers from the Dunning-Kruger effect, where people who are actually incompetent don't know just how incompetent they are. They think they're great at something. So he thinks he's great at presidenting. and that overconfidence, while it may win support, it ultimately is lethal in a position of power, because you're going to make a stupid mistake by believing that you're correct and that you have the right answer to everything. So source of memories, in other words, your source memories can be give you problems, because you can maybe forget who you got it from or where you got it from. So, for example, the phrase "we are what we repeatedly do" is attributed to Aristotle, but it doesn't actually come from him. It comes from a commentator on him, a guy called Will Durant, who summarized and wrote about Aristotle. And he summarized Aristotle as putting that view forward. Aristotle himself doesn't really say that. Same scenario of the Bible, right? So everyone thinks Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John were written by Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. No, they weren't. They were written about 100 years later. Those guys were dead already, if they existed. So, you misattribute the authorship of something to give it authority. Einstein said we use 10% of our brains, or Einstein said fish can't climb trees, or whatever you want to say. You misattribute it to some authoritative source, Confucius, Einstein, whoever. And then it gains authority and power and believability through the misattribution. So then you've got all these different biases that I've mentioned already, and it makes you unable to critically assess information. Then on top of that, you've got cognitive resistance, so you don't like changing your beliefs. And then you've got motivated reasoning, which is where you seek out beliefs that match your existing beliefs. In other words, confirmation bias. And then you have the backfire effect and belief polarization. So backfire effect is where you correct somebody, show them that they're wrong, but because you've got a different identity structure to them, they get angry with you and they reject your beliefs even more. So it doesn't even help sometimes to try to persuade people that they're wrong, because you just get a backfire effect. And that results in belief polarization, which is where your beliefs are more strongly divided in terms of their semantic content. So social identity and belief alignment are correlates. In other words, your beliefs are shaped by social and emotional factors, and they align with the desire or identity for social approval and joining and maintaining group membership. And then once you're in the group, you affirm the in-group consistent beliefs to maintain social harmony and avoid conflict in the group, which obviously leads to extra-group conflict. So here's a little cycle I've drawn up. You need to belong, you observe the group behaviors, you perform the same behaviors, so it's performative. There's an induction into the group where you profess, then you get accepted into the group and you model the group behavior and persist in it, which leads to your belief. So your belief is the last thing that forms. The rest is just behavioral reinforcement. Yes, I believe in behaviorism, sorry. And then this leads you to belief formation. So I think that the dynamic of a group behavior is what causes beliefs. So beliefs are identity signals, and expressing them is an expression of your identity. So like a chameleon, you join a group and you adjust your colors to fit the group. You yourself don't have a specific color. You just fit in with whatever you fit in with. And sometimes you can mark your body with those identity signals, as I've done, and as this gentleman in the picture's done. This is, I forget his name now, the QAnon shaman who invaded the US Capitol in Jan 6, 2021. And then had his mom bring vegan or vegetarian sandwiches to jail for him. So, as macho as he looks there, he's still a bit of a mama's boy. And you see he's got a big macho hammer of Thor. He's got the world tree, Yggdrasil. Above that, he's got Volknut, Odin's symbol. So he thinks he's a Viking. So this kind of excessive identity performance that you're seeing with this I think his name's Cheney, is part of your group allegiance declaration. So your performative beliefs in group membership, they're performed in social settings to signal group membership and gain social approval in that group. Individuals may publicly declare their beliefs to align with their social group to reinforce cohesion. Performing the beliefs, participating in group rituals, and displaying symbols enhance the sense of belonging. People express those beliefs as signals of identity, enhancing their standing and also strengthening position in the group and getting rewarding emotions. So the trouble is that we've now got this thing called social media. It's not just soapboxes, it's internet. So your reach is more or less infinite. So you get media bubbles. So you make friends with and you join groups that say the same things over and over. Preaching to the choir, it's called. So once you're in your media bubble, which is your preaching to the choir environment, you only see the stuff you want to see that matches your existing identity. So it exacerbates the effect of your truth default position and your social dynamics in the group. To make this worse, you get then algorithms that prioritize misinformation. So rage bait, in other words, things that offend you or irritate you, get more clicks. So, in a conservative group, you might post something about a 8-year-old child transitioning their gender or something, and that will get rage bait, right? So that'll get huge amounts of clicks because it will outrage the right-wing persons in the group. And reaffirm their testament that there's no such thing as trans, and then this will lead to greater in-group anger and rage towards the trans community. So that's just a simple example of how media bubbles can create rage and prioritize engagement on rage bait. Yeah, so that's why there's a Facebook logo there. But they're parallels, right? So for example, because you're now in this group, it doesn't matter whether what they say is true. What matters is that you all agree with it and that you all share stuff that validates your opinions. So people who believe COVID was a conspiracy uncritically shared COVID memes. They didn't even think about it. People who believe that Trump's fantastic uncritically share his comments and so on. So whatever affirms your group beliefs is what you're going to share on social media. And they're parallels with religion. So your media bubbles and what you see and you echo and the choir that you preach to could be religious, it could be political. It doesn't really matter. It just highlights your default position. So social media has got these big influences on media, on your individual identity as a group member, because they prioritize engagement over accuracy and they prioritize emotional reactions, i.e. rage bait. And the rage bait gives you the opportunity to publicly display your beliefs. So this would be equivalent to, in church speaking in tongues or prophesying, that kind of thing. So your public display of belief centers you in the group as a source of attention, and then you get lots of emotional, rewarding emotions because you are now in the center of attention. So you get echo chambers and you get conformity to subcultures. And the result of this is it is easy for conspiracy theories, fake news, and religions to spread in this context because they all involve a belief in a secret plan of some kind, right? So it could be something like the devil, it could be an assassination attempt. It doesn't matter. There's something evil and secret hiding, Pizzagate. And so if we look at these parallels here, conspiracy theories, involve beliefs in secret plans, i.e. conspiracies for social change, and they're not necessarily false, right? So there was a conspiracy theory that Kennedy and Lincoln were going to get assassinated in their own times, and everyone would be like, ha, 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 that's just not believable, but then it happened. So that's a case of an actual conspiracy. A conspiracy theory is just a theory until it's proven true, right? Fake news is components of a conspiracy theory. So you would have a small piece of fake news, like COVID was whatever, made by the CIA, whatever crazy thing you want to say. And then what you do is you share that as part of a grander conspiracy that there's an Illuminati controlling the government or whatever. So your fake news are your components of a conspiracy theory. And the impact of this can be severe. So there was a case of a guy who believed in David Icke's reptilian theory, i.e. that the elite in our world are actually reptilian aliens. And he ended up killing his 2 kids with a spear gun because he thought they were reptilian. So there is real danger to conspiracy theories, the most notorious of which, of course, is Protocols of the Elders of Zion, which led to World War II and millions of deaths. So that was a brochure circulating in the late 1800s, early 1900s that claimed the Jews controlled the world economy. And regardless of the truth or falsity of it, what it did was it provoked rage. It was early example of rage bait. And it led to genocide. And the same sort of thing happens with soccer hooliganism, which is the middle picture, right? So our team's great, your team's terrible. There's no objective justification for the statement. It's just a statement. So you're a this supporter or a that supporter, and now because the other guys are believing false things and you're morally superior because you believe the true thing, you must go and assault them. Other examples of the effects on social dynamics, pseudoscience, where you've got racial supremacism in, say, anthropology, where early anthropology tried to prove that whites were superior by looking at evolutionary theory. So that's pseudoscience. And then you get the racial supremacism, such as the Tuskegee syphilis study, where this so-called vaccine was tested on uniformly African-American subjects and led to them obviously actually contracting the disease. So how does this parallel to religion? Well, let's look at the general common properties, right? So soteriology, in other words, the promise of salvation. A great leader is going to come get you and save you. There's a good, great power that's going to save you. Could be God, could be Jesus, could be Trump. There's a bad, great power. Could be liberal elites, could be Illuminati, could be WEF, Masons, whoever you want to blame, or it could be the devil. Declaration of faith. Well, you've got your prophecies, you've got your declarations, the election was stolen, you've got your declarations like Trump was the best president ever. So there's your declarations of faith. And your declarations of faith in the theological sense are things like the Shahada or the Nicene Creed or whatever. So in both cases, you declare what you believe publicly. Deviating from the standard beliefs leads you to ostracism in both cases. Your membership is obtained by performative declaration of faith. You've got a membership ceremony to join. So in some cases online, you'd have to like answer questions about what you believe. And the same would happen in religion. You need to pass your initiation into that religion. Sacraments and proselytizing. So you have to proselytize and you have to speak publicly and you have to go to regular meetings and this kind of thing. And this applies to political groups as well. So I'm not saying political groups are above this or they're different. It's the same thing, really. It's just different content, but the structure is the same. There's soteriology. Socialism will save us. Arch capitalism will save us. There's a good, great power. Reagan, Gorbachev, Putin, whoever. There's a bad, great power. Reagan, Gorbachev, Putin. Declaration of faith. Communism is bad. Capitalism is bad. So it's all the same logic. Response to criticism or argument. Well, if you challenge a conspiracy theorist, they'll always say, do your own research, which means go look at YouTube. And then Christians will just say, you must just have faith. So in both cases, they kind of expect you to just believe them and tell you to go look elsewhere because they themselves can't actually justify their beliefs because they don't have justified beliefs. They have group accepted beliefs. Level of confidence in their belief, i.e. Dunning-Kruger, is high in both cases. Amenability to skepticism is low. In other words, they both get angry if you're skeptical. And apocalypticism, so they both talk about end of world, end of times, that kind of thing, a great judgment, etc. And if you look at, say, apocalypticism, you see signs of it in Marx, where he talks about the end of history. You see signs of it in capitalism, where there's this threat of the Great Red Terror. You see it in conspiracism, where it's about the Great Awakening, the storm, the Great Replacement, and so on, versus, say, religion, where you've got crucifixion, Armageddon, rapture, and so on. So all of these things are parallels, and you can see that they're all about group beliefs. So politics, conspiracism, and religion, they're all about group beliefs, group statements of belief in a group context, declarations of faith, articulations of faith, proselytizing, going and converting people, going door to door to get people to join your movement. And then the reason to join the movement is to save the members of the group from some big scary thing, an end time, a devil, a bad politician, or whatever. So from this, you can recommend that you need to look at things like the utility of the belief. Why do people believe they believe rather than what do they believe? You identify what sources of information are trustworthy. So not just the ones your group recommends, but what other sources of information might be trustworthy. How do you know they're trustworthy? You encourage Bayesian reasoning, in other words, updating beliefs and changing beliefs based on evidence. But you also need to provide a sense of belonging and positive reinforcement. So in other words, if somebody's believing something that you think is crazy, and let's say you've objectively got good reasons to think it's crazy, you need to actually not address their beliefs. You need to just be nice to them. You need to give them what Rogers calls unconditional positive regard. Because if you don't do that, they will go further and further away into the arms of the love bombing cult that they've joined. So you need to focus on things like group persuasion, so getting an entire group of people to change their position by being, uniformly nice, uniformly upstanding, and so on. So in short, belief, whether it be politics, religion, or conspiracies, aren't about facts. They're about, it's not about justified belief or justified true belief, as we say in analytic philosophy. What it's really about is declaring your group membership, reading your sacraments, proselytizing, warning people about the great devil, protecting your group, standing with your group, and so on. It's really about that. So it's not about logic. And when you understand this, then you can stop hating people with different beliefs and seeing them as somehow morally defective because they've got different beliefs. They just happen to end up in a different group. Whether the group's right or wrong is a separate question. Thank you.